Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Lorenzo's Music Podcast. I'm Tom. On today's show, I am going to be talking to a musician that's based out of New York, and there's an interesting way that I met them, and we talk about that in the beginning of the show. Also, this person is in a lot of musical acts, and we discuss how this came about, how they originally were going to art school. They were an illustrator and then went into music. It was the transition into it is actually pretty natural when you hear the story, but it's a great story leading up to it. How they became a musician, how they busked on the streets as a musician, how they maintained so many bands. And we also talk about the new singles that the person has released, and also a documentary they were in called Rock Chicks. And on top of that, there is also a lot of video work that the person has done. And we talk about how they got this video work. And it really comes down to just they were surrounded by other creators and art school people. It's a fascinating story. And you also get to hear the sound of the New York subway going by as we talk, which I thought added a little flavor to the interview. So here it is, starting right now.
I'm Honeychild Coleman. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm a visual artist, musician, and a new writer.
A new writer?
Yes.
Oh, that I didn't know yet. Okay, all right. We'll get into that in just a second. So I want to first explain to people the interesting way that we met. So I have an art podcast, and you are on the mailing list for it. And I sent out, because I was starting this music podcast again, and I sent out an email where I was, first of all, kind of getting like just questions about what people did, but also I asked what other kind of talents they had, and, you know, add your email if I could contact you about those other talents. And you were one of the people who said, I'm a musician, and you put your email in there. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go check that out. Man, you're a musician. You're a musician all over the place. So that was fun. And I was like, well, this is great. I got to have you on the show. So cool. Bing, bang, boom, here we are.
Excellent.
Yeah. And so I want to talk about that first. So you are a solo musician. You are in what I want to say is 5 different projects. I actually want you to define what it is you do musically and how many things you're in. So tell me about your projects.
I hope I don't hurt anyone's feelings if I forget a project. My main band that is kind of generating the most attention right now is called the 1865.
Mm-hmm.
We've been together since 2017. I joined that band with Sasha Jenkins, and we co-write everything together. We're not as active show-wise right now, but okay. The drummer and I have been doing duo shows where we play a half of the 1865's music and then my solo music as well. So we mix it up.
So when I see those videos, you're saying the one where it's just you and the drummer, that's only part of the band. It's not just a 2-piece band. Oh, okay.
No, it's really a 4-piece band. The bass player of that band also has a band called Ma'afa, and Jason Biz is in that band too. There's a lot of cross-pollination in our scene, which you've probably experienced as well. But let's see. So as far as my solo project goes, years ago, I did have a permanent Honeychild band. But I just like too many styles. And I started touring in Italy with an electronic rock band called
Wait a minute, what? You did what?
At the peak of like, I guess what people consider the Riot Girl movement, although we weren't really in it. I'll get to that later. There was a venue in New York called Meow Mix, and that was like our feminist punk mini CBGBs.
Also
so
great name.
Run by women, mostly women played. And I met a lot of my friends doing gigs there, and that's where I kind of had my first band.
Yeah.
But at that same time, I was in the electronic scene, and I recorded with some friends, and they asked me to tour with their band. And 2 of the people in that band were American, and everybody else was Italian. So once I started to tour more with them, my other band kind of fell to the wayside because everyone just started doing other projects. It happens.
Yeah.
But I have a really unusual take to getting into bands because I didn't start in bands the way a lot of people do in high school. I started as a visual artist, and pretty much my whole life until college, like that's all I did.
What medium?
Illustration, pen and ink is my
Okay.
favorite, but I also like oil painting illustration and not oil painting, oil pastels. So I paint
Oh.
with oil pastels. I haven't done it in years, but it's really one of my favorite mediums. I got into acrylic a little, wasn't my cup of tea so much, but in the
Mhm.
80s, I was into graffiti, so I got really into stencil art.
Oh,
And
okay.
that was my graffiti style. I would always have like a couple of stencils in my backpack, some spray paint, looking for some like dark street that no one was on where I could like tag some things with the stencils. Never talked about it, just like would go on a walk at night and do it.
Okay.
But I went to school for fashion design. Like that was going to be my major. But then I got to New York and of course was so distracted I could barely go to school because there's just so much to do here. And every club was in walking distance of my school. I went to Parsons, so my dorm was in Union Square.
Hmm.
And looking back, you know, like I went to my high school reunion and everyone's like, we're not surprised you're a musician. All you did was talk about music. You spent all your money on records. We don't even know why you wasted your time going to art school. Like no one was shocked but me. So later, I ended up living in Berkeley. And that's when I got into music because the music scene in the 90s there was crazy. Like I got there right as Operation Ivy played their last show.
Oh,
Primus was
nice.
up, grunge was exploding. Like it was such a great time, and there were so many like really awesome local bands. So
Hmm.
by accident, I started singing like in a party band at
Hmm.
like dorms and on campus and stuff. And then a friend of mine gave me a guitar because she's like, it was very similar to the high school thing. She's like, I don't know why you're not playing guitar. Whenever we're like all hanging out, we're all singing with the song and you're singing the guitar parts. And I wasn't even aware. Like
What, you
that's
mean you're going like dun 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 dun?
like, you're a guitarist. What the hell? Here, just take this thing. So I was like teaching myself to play, and then I took some classes and started writing songs. But I
Hmm.
had never been in a band as a musician before. I'd only been like people's backup singers. So that was like a whole super scary thing to be the
Uh-huh.
focus, even though I knew I wanted to write. And at that time, like Oakland had a really amazing junior college. It's still open. It's called Laney.
Okay.
And all of the professors of San Francisco State and UC Berkeley also taught there. So the quality of the education was amazing
Hmm.
and the tuition was so cheap. I mean, I don't know, like I think I was paying like 350 a credit or 550. It was something so insane that you could just take a class for fun and not even care what your grades were.
Okay.
So I took piano, I took classical guitar, I started taking classical voice, but it was too boring for me. And also I still had stage fright, believe it or not, like to sing
Hmm.
in class. So I took that class twice and I went every week and then it was my turn to sing. I would just not go back. I was like, okay, I'll just wait till next semester and try again. And then finally, I took a jazz pop vocal class. And that class, the teacher, her name's Jackie Hairston, she had a really amazing way of figuring out what your voice is and making you feel super comfortable. And
Okay.
she also let you sing the music of your genre. So she didn't make
Hmm.
you sing anything standard. She's like, what do you like? She had this machine. I don't know what it was called. You could bring in, okay, we're talking 90s, so cassettes. You could bring
Yeah.
in a cassette. Like, let's say you really love Soundgarden. You could bring in your Soundgarden cassette and she would remove the vocals. So
Huh.
you could sing in your voice with the music that you liked. And that would be your homework. And it was so crazy. I was like, wow, I don't know what this is, but it really gave me the courage to sing in my own voice.
Yeah.
And she gave us like mental exercises to do. Like I only took her class for 1 quarter. It completely changed my life.
Hmm.
And at the end of that quarter, we did like a full performance in a theater. The whole school came. It was like super formal. And after that, I was like, okay, I guess I'm ready to do gigs now as me, like not just in someone else's band. And
And you're saying like as a solo musician,
as a
not
solo,
even with a band yet.
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't have a band. I had a drum machine and a guitar.
Oh, I
And
like the drum machine adage to it. That's nice.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 'cause this is also when like shoegaze was blowing up and I was really into
Oh, yeah.
beat. So I was trying to book shows as a solo person, and this because I didn't have a band, I could only do like some open mics or some folky places
Hmm.
where like I remember one time I came and I had a distortion pedal and it was frowned upon. Like
How dare you?
exactly. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I thought you could be free in art. Like it's creation.
Uh-huh.
So I just felt very stifled. I mean, I tell the story a lot because I was also very into hip hop too, and that's what drew me to the drum machine. And the hip hop scene then was mixed with acid jazz, which is
Hmm.
another like Bay Area thing. It was super cool, or with like rare funk. There was this band I really love. They're still kind of doing stuff called the Brown Fellinis, and
Okay.
they hosted a party with DJs, and this is also when Michael Franti had left the Beatniks and he blew up with Disposable Heroes, and he had a party
Mm.
too. So we were going to all these parties where like local celebrities were the hosts, but it was very like low key, like anyone could go. It wasn't like Velvet Ropes or anything. And
Hmm.
young MCs were getting on the mic. And at this time, two things happened that really made me feel like, okay, I don't know where I fit in, but there's some artists doing cool things that I like. And one was PJ Harvey, and the other was Bjork going solo. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to try
Nice.
to find somebody who understands what I'm trying to do. So I would go to the parties and think like, oh, I want to freestyle on the mic, but I want to sing, because I'm really inspired by what's happening. And I'd wait in line with all the MCs. And then they're like, okay. And I was like, they're like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to sing a song. I'm like, nah, it's only for MCs. So then they'd pass the mic to someone else. And I'm like, what?
Hmm.
So I kept feeling like too many people are saying no to me. I have to go
Yeah.
somewhere else. Like, this is kind of weird. And then a bunch of my friends who didn't really all know each other were all coming to New York. Just like this one summer, they're like, yeah, I think I'm going to go to New York and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I do love New York. I had lived here before, and I kind of felt like I did all I could in the Bay Area at the time.
Hmm.
Like I just felt like artistically out of place, even though it inspired me to do stuff. There was no place for me to be. So on a whim, I just took a road trip and came back and have lived here since.
Wow.
like,
Okay.
like, okay, I'll just go check out the scene. And then I got here and everything kind of started happening. Like I met people, I started playing shows. I was busking in the subway for like probably a good year. Um, and just like meeting other artists who, even if they didn't know what I was doing, they were curious enough to try.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how I got started. And still no band, just me and a drum machine and a guitar. I didn't form a band until we started to do the Sister Girl Riots. So
Okay.
that's like 98. I'd been here about 5 years, just playing solo and just working with DJs.
I'm curious when you said you were busking, and I always wonder that I've spoken with other people that have done busking. How much do you make doing something like that, especially in New York? How lucrative is that?
It's pretty lucrative. I mean, again,
Really?
in 93, and I wasn't super ambitious. I just went to one station and I also wasn't there all day. I only busked during rush hour, Monday through
All right.
Friday. I'd make about $200, which
Whoa,
was not a
really?
bad then. The one time I went to Grand Central, I made $30 in like half an hour because
Wow.
there's a lot of tourists there.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I mean, there's more people doing it now, but it's lucrative. I know
Okay.
people that just live off it, so
Interesting. Okay.
you can
I'm always
definitely.
curious. I realize I've never asked that question when you said it. I was like, it's such a romantic thought, and I'd love to do it, but at the same time, I'm like, "Ooh, is it worth it?" So apparently, it is.
It is
Like,
worth it. It's
yeah,
it's it's worth it for a couple of reasons. One, you get to see normal everyday people that
true.
aren't going to come to a club, and also just maybe they don't know anything about what you're trying to do, or they've never seen you before. So you're just like, and I know when I'm walking through the train and I hear music and it sounds nice, I appreciate it. So
Yeah.
you get to see kids. You also get to practice for free in a place that usually has decent acoustics. So my chops were insane then. I can't play as well as I did during my busking. I was playing for like 4 hours a day every day. It was incredible.
Right.
Um, the amount of people that you meet is also pretty amazing. Um, what was the other part? I had a routine. Like I was telling someone the other day, because I think I went to get a falafel sandwich. I was like, oh, this reminds me of my busking days when
Mm-hmm.
like it would be a slow day and I'd make just enough to have dinner and I'd feel so proud that I did it playing music.
Totally.
Like, I got my money. I'm going to walk home now. I'm carrying my guitar. My arms are ripped because I'm carrying this huge full string guitar in a heavy case, and I'm not
Right.
going to pay to get on the subway because that's the whole thing. I'm just in there to make money and get out and
Yeah.
eating my sandwich. And yeah, there's something about it. Like it definitely gives you a different sense of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I had like for some reason I had stage fright before I started doing all that and before I
I
came
was
back.
going to say, you went from having stage fright to standing in front of strangers on the street for
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, and the crazy thing too is like, I mean, the subway is pretty intense now due to a lot of
Yeah.
reasons, but at this point, people did still smoke crack in the subway, so I saw a lot of things.
Okay.
And sometimes people would I'm pretty good at like dealing with people getting in my personal space. I don't know. I have all brothers, so you have to have a little bit of toughness. But like one time, I'm also kind of the queen of not knowing who famous people are, like when I see them in person. So
Yeah.
one time, I was playing, and it was like a slow Friday, and I was maybe a little just tired because I still would busk after, like, I would work 9 to 5, like doing temp work, and then still busk after.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy came up to me, and he got like this close. He's like, "Hey, I just want to ask you a question." I was like, "You need to back up." I was just like, "Nah, this is my space." And then he's like, "Yeah, so blah blah blah." It's like, "I'm sorry, can you talk faster because the crowd's coming and I need to play a song?" Like I was just very like, "I don't care. Who are you?" And he's like, "Oh no, I just want to say, I really like your style and I want to shoot you." And I was like, "Okay, whatever, dude. Just put
Uh-huh.
your info in my case." Like I was so jaded. And
Right.
then so he turned out to be this incredible photographer who all of my fashion friends knew. Like I'm
Oh.
friends with him now. His name's Andrew Desumu, and he makes films, and he's a very sweet person. But at the time, and I told him, it's like, dude, I thought you were just like some crazy homeless dude in my face because you were just like you had no sense. He's like, no, I'm from London. We just don't care. And I was like, you are in face. So I'm just it's so funny because I think like all the times that I've done that to people and they've turned out to be cool, maybe they don't mind that I'm not like, oh my God, it's so and so. I'm like, hey,
Right.
back up. Like, what is this? So that happened. But I met really interesting, like I would say 10 people I met busking, I'm still friends with today. One of
Oh.
them, my friend Monk Washington, ended up being in the first band that I put together. And
Hmm.
also one of the first people I wrote songs with.
Okay. Now,
So,
getting to the bands that you created and also the ones that you're in today, what would you say how would you explain your music? I guess I don't want to say what's your genre of music. I guess I'm saying how would you explain it to people?
um, hmm. I guess the music that I write where I'm the leader is always guitar driven, either
Mm-hmm.
guitar or bass, because those are the two instruments I mainly play. I don't like to say singer songwriter because I feel like it's too mellow. And not all of my songs have that kind of mellow, sweet, although they
Right.
can be like, that's not really the vibe that it dominates what I do. Um, yeah, I don't know. I usually just
Okay.
say indie rock, songwriter driven. Um,
Yeah, because
some
it
people
does
say,
variate. I mean, you could
yeah,
say punk rock, but it's not really punk rock, but it is heavier than that. There's punk blues, which
yeah,
I'm finding that as a good catch-all to it's more visceral than experimental rock. It's
right.
like so I would say that, but then also you've got a little bit of spoken word poetry in some of your stuff. You've also got some washed out guitars. You got some banging drums on some stuff, especially some of your current stuff, which I
Yeah,
want to get into in a sec. But
the drummer. One of my brothers is a drummer too, and I'm always begging him to come do shows here.
okay.
Yeah, the 1865 is specifically a blues punk band. Like those are the influences that we
Okay.
channeled when we were writing and conceptualizing. I'm in another band called Backslider, which is a trio where I play bass, and that's really punk, post-punk
Is that
influenced.
the one where you have the Blitzkrieg cop
No, that's the
band?
1865.
Oh, that's the 1865?
Yeah, we have some
Oh,
new stuff that we didn't officially release. That's
yeah.
one of the songs. Um, we have about, I want to say 8 songs that are not on the first album that we play a lot, so you'll see the videos for them.
Okay. All right.
But they are on an album, a live album we recorded at Applehead for the Woodstock sessions.
Actually, let me ask you about the videos since you brought that up. Now, you've got a bunch of different videos, and like you said, and this explains a lot to me looking at your stuff, because one place you'll have something, but then another place you won't have that same thing, like, you know, on the different platforms. And sometimes you'll release something, but it'll say from 2008 or something like that. Like you'll release back catalogs or things that maybe were unreleased. But getting to the videos, they are all shot, I want to say well, but you know, they look like real videos. You know what I mean? Like they look like they're on film. They look like they have depth. They have multi cameras. So how are you? It seems like all the videos you have seem to have a really good multi camera, like directed look to them. So who's doing these videos for you? I guess that's a
Well,
tough
I
one.
mean, we all are like art school dropouts, for lack of a
Okay.
better description. But specifically, my bandmate Sasha is a filmmaker.
Mm,
So for the 1865, we did work with real film people.
okay.
For my own solo stuff as well, like I'm just really fortunate to have some good friends that are cinematographers and photographers. And then I art direct. So
Hmm.
I was telling someone, like, maybe because I'm a visual artist, like, I love making videos as much as I love recording because I get to sit down and sketch out what I want the scenes to be and
Yeah.
then see it come to life. And it's really fun. Like from every detail, like I remember my friend Josh Smith, who's also a visual artist, he wanted to shoot the video for Coming Through the Rye from my first record. And he just gave me a really loose concept. He's like, okay, I'm going to make some props. So you're in a field of wheat.
Hmm.
And the idea is I'm going to shoot you with 3 cameras or just in 3 segments. It was really just me, Pooj, the Reaver, and him and my friend Ed doing the whole thing in my house. Like literally, like we emptied out my bedroom. I let him paint on the wall. We did it. We all painted for like 2 days and then we like shot it in one. But it was just us. And
Hmm.
but he didn't say anything else. He's like, you're going to be 3 people, whatever. And I don't know what he had in mind, but I went in hard with the characters and each character had a backstory. I don't know if you
Okay.
see the video, but it was really fun to figure out a way to keep switching between the 3 characters and make it look consistent. No makeup artist, no stylist, nothing. It was literally just us in my tiny apartment. And because we are all artists, I think it looks pretty polished.
So it was more of like a conversational layout. You didn't like storyboard it or anything like that.
I
You were just,
storyboard
oh,
everything.
you did.
I mean,
Okay. All right.
855, I didn't do those storyboards, but for my
Right.
solo videos, always storyboard it.
All right.
So,
Nice. Yeah.
um, those stuff I shot in France, I storyboarded. The red and white video, same thing. Went to the
Hmm.
location, sketched.
Awesome.
Um, Often, if I'm going to work, it depends who the photographer is, but I will do some test shots of how I want stuff framed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, if you can get these shots, great. The rest, do what you want, but these shots need to be in it. So I always kind of look ahead to figure out what visual theme I want something to have. I can't remember any video I've shot where I didn't do that or didn't just said, oh, just shoot it and it's going to be whatever. Like Ed Marshall and I went to Rockaway Beach. I storyboarded that whole thing out. I knew the scenes and then he also knew things he wanted to shoot.
Hmm.
So
Okay. And do you edit them or do you have someone else edit them?
I am not an editor, unfortunately.
Okay.
Ed
It's
Marshall,
okay not to do one
yeah,
thing.
just, I mean, I wish I've never tried to do it. Which I think if I could, I would probably, unfortunately, or not, just fall into a vortex of making videos. Like I shoot
I could see
random
that.
stuff all the time. Like, oh, I'm going to do something with this. Like the beauty of, I think the social media platforms now is you can make little snippets. So
Yeah.
that's a new thing for me that I'm learning very slowly with whatever platforms I use. Like I use Adobe sometimes, or I mean, even in Instagram, you can do some real things and make it look kind of cool, but real video editing, no, never.
Okay.
Not yet. But in Backslider, my other bandmate Anu is also a real film editor. She edits documentaries, and we shot some stuff with Thomas
Mm-hmm.
that she and I sat down to edit, but I can't choose. Like I like too many things, so I can't be the editor.
Okay.
It'll
All
take
right.
too long to do it.
I can see that. That makes sense.
I'll be
Now,
like, this looks cool, but so does this. Which one do we pick?
so on your Bandcamp, you actually have a recent song release. Now, I think it's your solo one. It's Skinny White Girls in Jesus Sandals.
Yes.
Tell me about the making of that song. It's a fun song. It's actually a really good groove on it too. I'd like it.
Thank you. That was produced by my dear friend Kelsey, aka Black Emoji. Kelsey used to be in this awesome band called Pillow Theory,
Okay.
and they put out quite a few albums. One of which was produced by Steve Albini. So it really has that big beat sound, but that was just how they sounded live anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He and I also were in a shoegaze band together called Apollo Heights, and that band is now developed. So, and when I knew I was leaving the band, I was like, Kelsey, I'm just letting you know they need another guitarist and we think it should be you. But then I came back and there was overlap. So we've been in each other's circles for a long time. I wrote that song actually kind of as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
It's like walking around Williamsburg and looking at like the gentrification everywhere. And I remember I recorded it in my phone and I sent it to Danny of the Velt. I was like, this is what's happening in Williamsburg, just so you know. You're not missing anything. And he's like, it's genius, do it. So then when Kelsey and I started recording a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, I have this song. It's kind of silly, but I really want to record it because I feel like no one will expect it. It's very different from everything I've done.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I love it. Let's do it. So that's how that came about.
And do you record in studio? Do you record at home? A mixture of the two? Like, what is your recording process?
It really depends. I'm getting back into doing some home recording because my partner does have a studio here, and he's helped me do some overdub things. He's helped me do some, like I did a song for George Floyd. I did it, same thing. I did it in my phone, and then I'm like, hey, can you help me record this now? And when I didn't live here, and I ran over and we just did it all in like a day. For my new stuff that Black Emoji's producing, we're doing it in his home studio. I've also recorded my solo stuff at Studio G in Brooklyn, which is my favorite Brooklyn place ever. That's Tony Maimone. I don't know if you know him. He was the original bassist of Pere Ubu.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. That I know.
Yeah, he's a wonderful, wonderful person. And I met him, honestly, in the drum and bass scene, just to show you like how cross-pollinated it all is.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, since the 90s, I've done a lot of recording at Studio G and hope to go back soon. And then the 1865 records upstate near Woodstock at Applehead Studios.
Okay. All right. And I mean, it looks like you're in a home studio right now, or it looks like you're in a music shop.
Yeah, well, this is my home studio / rehearsal. I don't record in here. I don't know if you can hear all the horns, but
yeah, I can. No, it's very New York of you.
And I'm in between two red lights on one little block.
And somebody's very unhappy outside with whoever's trying to cross.
Irritated. It's like, it's raining. What are you gonna do? Yeah, this is my rehearsal room, so I have drums and guitars and stuff behind me, and then next door to me is my partner's room because he does mainly electronic and analog stuff, and he plays horn, but he has a full console and everything there.
Now, how are you able to do that in an apartment? That's one of the things I've always had difficulty with. Whenever I've had a place where it's an apartment, it's like, yeah, I'll set up like, oh, maybe I'll practice here. And the second I make noise, I'm like, everybody in the building can hear me. And I just feel like I can't do a damn thing. So what, I mean,
are you in a newer building or an older building?
I'm in a newer building now, but I'm just saying in the past, I've been in ones where it's been like a small place and I'm very self-conscious about it. Here, I'm pretty sure I could get away with making some noise, but
yeah, well, two things. Funny you should ask. New
Yeah.
York does have a rule that you're technically allowed to make noise until 10 p.m. and
Okay.
everyone takes full advantage of it.
Okay.
In my old building, which is in the same neighborhood, it's so funny. Wow, this is so New York. We had these neighbors who I don't know how many people lived in their apartment. I think it
Hmm.
was like two generations of a family, and they were just noisy around the clock to
All
the
right.
point that I was on the sixth floor and they were on the first floor and everyone could hear them. So the landlord let my friend Chris move in next door, and Chris is a drummer. He's
Oh,
he play drums in the house. We don't care because they wanted those people to leave. But I was like, oh, well, if Chris is playing drums downstairs, no one cares. If I'd never had anyone complain about me playing music in my apartment then, um, only maybe a couple of times at night
hmm.
when I was recording my first album.
Mm.
And again, we had turned my bedroom into a studio, like put mattresses on the wall, and my friends came from Italy to help me record. They
Hmm.
shipped me the studio in parts. They shipped the mixer, they shipped the speakers, they shipped like so much gear so they
Hmm.
wouldn't have to come on the plane with it, and stayed for a month. And we recorded an entire album in a month and had different people coming in. Had a horn section one day, had like mini drums in another room, like did the whole album in this tiny, tiny one bedroom apartment. Here we live in an old brick factory building,
Yeah.
so no one cares.
Okay. All right.
Unless it's late at night, we're pretty lucky. Like if it's gonna be a nighttime thing in the week, I'll tell my neighbors, "Hey, I have band practice tonight," but no one cares at all. Like,
Okay.
thank because and it is loud.
Yeah,
It's
I would
I,
bet.
it
No,
was
even
not.
with the mattress on the walls, I'm like, that's only going to really make things just better sounding in the room. It's
Yeah, we just, we just put in a ventilation system last winter,
yeah.
like just because before it was just me and my partner. So we're like, I was like, I don't want heat. I was like, I don't care if there's heat in the studio because it's too expensive. I was like, I'll just wear gloves. Like we're good, we're good. But like we're like, okay, we have someone else coming. Let's put some heat in. And one day we were practicing and they were watching TV. And
Uh-huh.
he's like, I need to put some foam in the vent because all of your sound is coming through the heater. We can hear everything
Wow. Yeah.
so far away. It's like the opposite end of the building.
Oh.
So, but otherwise, like I usually try to practice during the day when no
Mhm.
one's really trying to sleep or rest.
Right.
And
That makes sense.
it's been all right. For recording, we use headphones. So
Hmm. Now, with the amount of stuff that you're putting out, and the different bands that you have, how are you promoting these? I mean, you keep putting stuff out, but how are you promoting it? I mean, of course, putting it out there in the first place is essentially promoting it, but after the fact, like, what are you doing to promote each project that you work on? Like, what are some of your tactics, I
um
guess would be the question.
what are some of my methods you said or
Yeah.
well, I'm not gonna lie, it's a challenge because in I run the social media accounts for myself, plus
Hmm.
my visual artist page, plus the 1865, plus Backslider. Um, I don't really manage the underground PA. I just kind of help when I can. That's
Hmm.
the artist development school that I do mentorship with.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to have a different voice for each page if one person does all the posting, in my experience.
Hmm.
And it's something I talk about a lot because I had to learn how to write in a way that doesn't sound like I'm talking about myself.
Hmm.
Like it's just a different language. And in the beginning, I would just post everything everywhere, but that's really annoying for your followers because it's like I don't want to see four posts on the same page. I want to see something different on every page.
Hmm.
And I reached my limit with it this year where I was
Okay.
like, I need to start scheduling because it takes a lot of time. Um, I do, however, love the freedom of being able to use different ways to express talking about the stuff, different visuals, different colors, different themes. And I think if you're just in one band or if you have to ask five people's permission, it's a little stifling as the creator.
Hmm.
I'm very thankful that everybody trusts me and they like what I do. No one's ever said, "Oh, I really didn't like that post." Like never. So that helps. Waiting for people to answer you to do something, to me, that's the worst part, because then you're like, okay, this is time sensitive, and it kind of starts to feel like a job.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I guess I could say it's the same as just when people say, how can you be in so many bands? I like to do different things, so each one is a different flavor or a different theme or a different feeling.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go on my DJ page and talk about band practice. On my band
Right.
page, I'm going to talk about the records I bought. On my artist page, I'm not going to talk about a festival I just played, because that's for visual art and fashion. So I have outlets for all the different interests. So that's kind of how I keep it separate.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a lot of work? I can't downplay it. It really
Mm-hmm.
is. I spent 3 hours last night scheduling posts. I was like, well, I'm tired. I could do this, or I could watch a movie. And I'm like, I really need to get these posts scheduled. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you know.
Yeah. I got you there. I know that one. Yeah. And the thing one of the other things too is it's hard to make that shift as a person who also juggles several different mediums, backgrounds, and ventures,
Mm-hmm.
and separating them all, and also deciding what works with what. It's I realized one mistake that I made is I know that I needed an account for each, but when I first started doing it, I was going, oh, it's just me personally, and I'm just going to do all that. Whereas it ended up one of the accounts took over that personal account. And then I felt I couldn't post any of my own personal stuff on it anymore.
Mm.
And then it was hard to, and that was the one with all the followers. And it was hard to
Mm-hmm.
go like, no, go over here for that stuff,
Right.
because I do want to post about some stupid thing, or post about everything that I'm doing, because I want to post about myself as a creative individual, not just a specific category of it.
Right.
I want it to be like a personal website / brand or whatever. And
Right.
that's what I'm working on right now. But originally when I started, I didn't think about that. And I'm like, it should be everything that I do. And it's like, yes, it should. But then when one of those hits, they're like, well, I don't want to hear about the other thing. I'm
Exactly.
here for the one thing. I'm here for, like, say, the stuff behind me, the pop culture vintage stuff that I sell. They don't care about my band,
Right.
but on my personal site, I should still be able to talk about my band. And that's the
Exactly.
difficult part. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm with you on that. I use my I call it my artist page, but my artist page is really for personal stuff. So you
Yeah.
might see family photos, you might see health things, or like whatever you would talk about when Facebook didn't have artist pages, when it was just friends. That's how I
Mm-hmm.
treat that page.
Yeah.
And every now and, like today, I was like, oh, I'm going to be at this venue selling merch for my band that I designed, but I don't really talk about the band. I just talk about the fact that I'm in it and I designed something for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of liberating, because on my artist page, I don't talk that way. No
Yeah.
one cares who designed the t-shirt. They just want to know what it costs. Like it's very categorized.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes me feel a little sane having a place to talk a specific way about an experience. Like on my artist page, I don't talk about what I do at home or my partner or what I ate. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
nice to have that place to put it, but also not feel obligated to do it. Like I'm not an influencer. I'm not going to tell you what I ate every day and what restaurants I like. But if I feel like it, I will, but not on my music page.
Yeah.
Some people just, like you said, they just have one thing and they do everything. But I also feel like the people that come to see the 1865 don't necessarily care about me as a solo artist, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
um, the people that come to Backslider don't necessarily like the 1865. Like it's all like different people, and that's interesting to see too. Outside of our scene, of course, like outside of New York, but
Hmm.
it's not easy. I'm with you.
Yeah.
There's definitely, especially with Facebook, and I don't know how active you are on there.
I used to be, and it is not, and not because of the whole algorithm thing. Like even when the whole, like, we're not showing the posts in the timeline as they're, they're prioritizing posts or going, we think you might be more interested in this. I was still doing okay there. But then after a while, the interaction just kind of stopped. And I was
Yeah.
still having good interaction, but now when I post there, it's like I look at the analytics and it's like, oh, 5 people cared. You know, like it used to be a lot heavier there, and that actually used to be my main, even when everybody was claiming they were on Instagram. Now everybody actually is on Instagram.
Right. Yeah, my Facebook artist page used to be great. I also liked it because my personal page is private,
Mm.
but unfortunately, because my personal page is the oldest page, people tag me in public things all the time. Like
Oh.
even I was like, no one's going to see it if they're not my real friend. So you're kind of if you're trying to promote tagging me, good luck, like. And then twice a year I post, this is how you tag an artist. No one reads. No one reads. It's incredible. I'm like, step by step, here it is.
Hey, I get tagged all the time by really influential people that can get me 50,000 followers if I just go DM this other person's account.
Exactly.
I love those ones. Those are so fun. I want to interact with them. It's so nice to mess with them, but that's exactly how they get you, or at least find a way to go, oh, this person responds, and then they just keep doing it.
Their engagement.
I know it, but I really want to mess with them and claim that I'm smarter. And it's like, that's what they want you to do.
Yeah. Don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. So you are in a documentary that came out a little while ago called Rock Chicks. That's on Vimeo. Yes. Tell me a little bit about that, because first of all, I watched the trailer and it seems fascinating. So
I actually just had the pleasure of speaking about the documentary at Yale a few months ago with the producer. And I was joined by the admirable Kristen Hirsch, who I love and adore. Yes, the filmmaker found me through Tanya Pearson. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She wrote a book called Why Marianne Faithfull Matters.
Okay.
He also has a video podcast called I'm going to get this wrong, The Oral History of Women in Rock.
All right.
And she interviewed me for that during the pandemic. She's interviewed, and now that's going to be a book. But this filmmaker, Marika, found me through that. And when she asked me to do it, I didn't know that Kirsten was going to be in the film as well. So when she was interviewing me about influences, I was talking about how I went to see Throwing Muses and they're one of my favorite bands.
That's how the name. Okay. I was trying to go like, why do I know that name? All right. Throwing Muses. Gotcha.
The day of the show, I was biking. I still lived in Oakland and I took a tumble with my bike. So I was like all skinned up and covered in bandages. And my friend's like, oh, are you okay? It's like, yeah, I have to go to the show. I don't care. So like, I was like totally like scraped up seeing them for the first time. So she's like, oh, wow. Yeah. I think that I talked about her in the film. Mm-hmm. Maybe I didn't talk about her in the film, but I went to see her play because she just happened to be at City Winery like the next week. And it was my first show since the pandemic started. So I was like, I'm treating myself. I'm going to go. I don't care if no one's going with me. I walk into the venue and there's the filmmaker. She's like, oh, why are you here? And I was like, I'm here to see Kristen Hirsch. She goes, oh, we're here to film her. Do you want to meet her? And I'm like, get out.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And it turned out we had she's friends with the twins, Danny and Daniel, who are in the Velt, who were also in Apollo Heights. So it's like this full circle thing. So I met her backstage. They filmed it. And then the film came out, I want to say a year and a half ago, but not in America. So it finally is available streaming. And what an honor.
Yeah.
Just to be able to talk about the experience and everything and be included in that circle of artists.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really cool. And that's, it looks great. And like I said, I saw the trailer for it. I might watch it this weekend, but it's, the trailer just seemed really cool and very interesting. I'm excited about that one. And also, you had mentioned before, I want to make sure I don't forget about this. You also said that you're recently a writer. So what are you writing? Tell me about what you're doing as a writer.
I had my first publishing experience with a short story that I wrote that was included in an anthology curated by James Spooner. James Spooner is the creator he created the Afropunk film.
Okay.
He did another film as well. He's also done some graphic novels, and he and Chris Terry decided to do this anthology of poetry, interviews, and written work for Black punks called Black Punk Now. And I feel like this whole interview is turning into how Danny and Daniel Chavis are the catalyst for my life, because again, they invited me to come to Raleigh and play a festival that they are doing called Bazaar Noir. And it was the first Friday at the Core Museum, the City of Raleigh Museum. They're like, "Do you want to come and play a show with us?" And I'm like, "Well, I'll do it, but can I also read from the book?" Because the book wasn't out yet. I was like, "Do you mind?" Oh, actually, I wasn't even in the book yet. I was like, "Hey, do you guys mind if I do some reading? Because I'm starting to read some of my work." They're like, "Yeah, you can do whatever you want." So I did a combination of reading and music. And James saw a photo from the show, and he's like, "I didn't know you were a writer. Will you send me something for the book?" And I'm like, "Well, my book's not edited yet." And he's like, "Whatever, just send me a piece." So that's how I got started with it. And we spent like about a year and a half editing the whole thing, big new experience. And they ended up liking my work, and they thought that it fit the theme. And that's how it started. And then before the book came out, for a whole year, I documented doing readings and I used to do this thing called the Jaded Lover Salon, which was, I would invite other songwriters to come and play new work. So I rekindled that and just started bringing younger bands and asking people to read, and just kind of building it up to the book release.
I love how before you were explaining, I came up with an idea and I did mouth music of a recording on my phone and sent it to somebody instantly. But here the person's like, "Send me some of your work." And you're like, "Well, it's not edited yet."
Exactly. I was like, I don't know. I never let anyone read it.
That's an
it's
interesting.
funny. It's like, here. But yeah, that's how I ended up doing that. And then, I don't know if you're into zines, but there's a whole explosion of zine culture that's kind of blowing up again. I could see many
It
reasons
ebbs
why.
and flows all the time. Like there'll be 1 minute it's back and the next it's gone again. And
Yeah, so I started to make some zines again too. And yeah, it's been really interesting just to see what people are interested in. Because you think, like, I'm just a nerd making this thing in my house. Maybe I'll give it to a friend, or, I'll throw it on the merch table. And if someone buys something, here's a gift. But people are like, "No, I want the zine that you just read the piece from." So that's been really exciting.
Okay. And first of all, one, you're saying I should be hanging out with these two people because you said it seems like they connect you with everybody. So if I can get in touch with them and hang out with them more, let me know, because it seems beneficial. And two, you do play a lot of shows and you have a bunch of shows coming up. How are you? I mean, are you just, these people and you play out there a lot, or like, how are you finding shows? Is there, or is it really just, these are the places I play and they just know me, so it's not that difficult to get shows going?
Not the venues, because a lot of venues have closed.
Okay.
Especially a lot of venues that I built relationships with are gone. Right now, I would say it's all word of mouth with friends. Like, people they know that I know young bands too, because they see that I'm playing like a certain festival, or that I just talk about the people that I like who are coming up, which is like a community thing. And then, I've been here since '93. So
Right.
a lot of people from our era, I'm in my 50s, aren't playing anymore.
Right. You're
They're extremely
clearly
famous.
active. So
Or just like, yeah, I put that to the side and I don't play, or they've moved on to something else. I think that's part of it too. And yeah, I don't really look for shows, thankfully, unless I want to do something special. I don't try to book anything. It's been all invite, thank goodness.
okay. Yeah. It's and that's what I wondered. But that's, I mean, good for you.
I mean, only in New York.
Not for me.
Yeah, if I'm going to another city, then it's a lot of begging, like, because no one knows you, no one cares you're from New York. They don't care about anything you've done. They're just like, "Do you know a local band and what's your draw?" I was like, "Well, I've never been there, so I have no draw." this is my idea. I'll be the opener. I just want to play in your venue because I love
Yeah.
it.
No, in the Midwest, it's a different thing for sure because
Yeah.
while you're saying the places are closing, around here, that really is like when a place closes, another one doesn't take its place here
Mhm.
for a very long time. So
Well,
that's always the difficult
um,
thing.
I was in Stevens Point in September, and we found uh, a real punk house scene.
Mm-hmm.
There are people
No,
like,
the emo scene is actually becoming very big here. So the
yeah.
punk rock / emo scene is definitely on an uprise to the point where now we even have our own moniker of it. It's Midwest emo is what it's called.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I'm not sure what defines it as Midwest, but we do have our own subgenre here. And I actually had an intern that used to work for me that's in one of the bands that are in that scene. So I got to learn a lot about it.
Okay.
Yeah, and if people wanted to see, hear, and know more about what you do, where should they go do that?
They can go to my website, which I'm slowly updating. It's just honeychildcoleman.com, or Instagram at HC Coleman is always good. I'm very slow to update Bandcamp and all the other bands in town. Resident Advisor. I put stuff on Resident Advisor if it's a really big deal. Like I have some stuff coming up at Lincoln Center, so it'll probably be on there. Um, Facebook is like the last resort. The people that follow me on Facebook don't go to shows. God love them. They buy stuff, they buy merch, but they don't go out as
That's
much.
not unimportant, but
Yeah,
yeah, I get
and
what
they
you're
buy.
saying.
Um,
They,
so
you ask them on there, and it's like, "What? I liked the post. What more do you want from me?"
exactly. I mean, I'm getting old school, and I honestly started doing a email newsletter again,
Yeah,
and that's been fun. That's been
yeah.
super fun. So if
The engagement for that is there was a time where nobody was reading emails, but now it's starting to work again. I wouldn't say nobody, but it definitely. I've been using email since I don't know the 1900s, I think. So I've seen the growth in what it can do, but yeah, it's still a reliable source.
yeah,
Occasionally, somebody will open an email. Sometimes people might open that email 2 weeks after you sent it, but they'll still open it.
exactly. I'm one of those people.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and it was great meeting you.
Yeah, thanks. Fun talking to you anytime.